Welcome back, class. Today we want to talk about the doctrine of man, or the doctrine of humanity. What do we mean when we talk about humanity from a theological perspective? This is theological anthropology, if you will. There are different ways that people think about humankind. Some people see humans as machines. The focus is utilitarian. What are humans able to do in this mindset? What can humans be used to accomplish? People are a means to an end rather than an end in themselves. Humans are sometimes seen purely as animals. In this vision, it's very naturalistic. Humanity is the result of the evolutionary process. There is no essential difference between humans and other animals in this model. And behavioristic psychology focuses on this view of human nature. Humans as pawns of the universe. The destiny of the race is at the mercy of environmental factors over which humanity has little or no control. The cosmos is completely indifferent to humanity, and any larger intelligent forces are viewed as hostile in this view. But what about the Christian view of humanity? The Bible emphasizes the imago Dei, the image of God in man and God's creative will. God willed to be creative and to make humanity in his image. And so the image of God, the imago Dei, is what makes us distinctively human. It's what separates us from all other animals on the planet. It's this ability, this condition of being created in the image of God. And it speaks to the future eternality of the human self. That we are created in the image of God means we are immortal. We have everlasting souls. And the image of God in us answers to the quest for human fulfillment. Where do we find meaning and purpose in life? It is in living out the image of God that we were created to bear. And so the Christian view answers the questions being posed by the world and gives the self a sense of personal identity in ways that other approaches simply cannot do. So what does the Bible tell us about creation? Well, in the Bible, we're shown direct creation. The question is, did God directly create the entirety of Adam's makeup, both physical and psychological, or did he simply take an existing higher primate and modify it, conferring upon it the image of God so that it became a living human being? This is what separates theistic evolutionists and creationists. The theistic evolutionists say that God used the process of controlled evolution up to a point. Creationists argue that he did not. What do the opening chapters of Genesis teach about how God created humanity? Does the text say anything that has bearing on scientific investigations of human origins? What kind of literary materials are we dealing with? We have to be consistent with the hermeneutic. Note the use of the word dust in 2:7 and 3:19. From dust you were taken, to dust you shall return. When did man become a living creature? Human beings came into being as a direct result of a creative act of God. And he breathed into their nostrils the breath of life. So how do we deal with direct creation and science? Well, science is still on a quest for the missing link. That supposed link between lower primates and humans. And what is it that constitutes us as human anyway? Is it the physical appearance or other factors? 3 factors are often considered: tool making, burial of the dead, and language. Monkeys make tools. Burial of the dead may only indicate fear of the unknown. We know now that Neanderthals buried their dead. So we know that could indicate simply a fear of the unknown. Language presents the fewest difficulties in establishing what it means to be human, and language takes us back about 30,000 years ago on a scientific timeline. So, what is the theological meaning of human creation? Humans have no independent existence. Our value is entirely derived from God. Any purpose, any meaning, any existence we have is derived from God. Humanity is part of creation. God created us to manage creation. And this has ecological implications for what we do with the world in which we live. God didn't put us here to trash the planet. Humanity has a unique place in creation. As God's image bearers, our place is to reflect God's goodness and God's nature. All humans have a common bond. We are all related biologically. If you go back far enough, I don't care what your ancestry is, if we go back far enough, we are all connected biologically. Human nature is limited. And these limitations are not inherently bad. Our fall into sin is not a necessary consequence of our creatureliness. Adam and Eve could have lived without falling into sin. Simply being a created being does not necessitate that we would be sinful. Our having a physical component does not necessitate that we would become sinful. And humans are wonderful creatures in the true sense of the word, full of wonder. So let's talk more specifically now about the image of God in particular. Relevant passages of Scripture that speak to the image of God in man are Genesis 1, 26 and 27, Genesis 5, 1 and 2, Genesis 9, 6, where God speaks of the death penalty for those who murder, 1 Corinthians 11, 7, James 3, 9, 2 Corinthians 3, 18, Ephesians 4, 23 and 24, and Colossians 3, 10. So what are our views of the image of God? Well, there is a substantive view. Is it physical? Is it psychological? Whatever it is a quality or capacity resident in human nature. Erickson discusses the relational view, and he lists 6 items, and you can look at that in the book. And then there's the functional view, that God created us in His image, and that means we have dominion over creation. This is based on Genesis 1:26, compared with Psalm 8, 7, and 8. And so this sees our being in the image of God as a functional thing where we are exercising dominion over creation. Let's evaluate these views now. The relational view. The relational view has a focus on the fact that humans are created for relationship with God. We are made to live in fellowship with God. In what sense can this view of the Imago Dei be universal, since so many fallen members of the race have no positive relationship with God? What is it that makes humans capable of this kind of relationship? It is the fact that we are created a living soul. The functional view. God did create humanity to exercise dominion, and this appears directly in the context of the creation account. There is some difficulty connecting Psalm 8 with Genesis 1, and Genesis 1:26 does not directly equate the image of God with dominion. What about the substantive view? Genesis 1:26 does not identify what qualities constitute the image of God. Some have in vain emphasized qualities borrowed from other philosophical systems, especially reason. So, what are our conclusions regarding the nature of the image of God? Well, first of all, the image of God is universal. Secondly, the image of God was not lost in the fall. Thirdly, the image of God is not present in a greater degree in some and a lesser degree in others. So whether a person has Down syndrome or has an IQ of 158, they are still created in the image of God. The image of God is not connected with variables of human existence. The image of God is primarily substantive. The image of God refers to qualities that make it possible for us to fulfill our destiny. That is, fellowship with the Father, obedience to the Father, love for God and others. Now, Ephesians 4:24, I want to look at this specifically in a bit of detail. In Ephesians chapter 4, verse 24, Paul, I think, gives us a glimpse into what the image of God in us is all about, because part of our salvation is the restoration of the image of God in us. And so Ephesians 4, verse 24, Paul says, "And put on the new self, which in the likeness of God has been created in righteousness and holiness of truth." The image of God here in Paul's mind speaks of an original holiness and an original righteousness that apparently in Paul's mind Adam and Eve possessed before they fell into sin. They were holy. They were set apart as created in the image of God. They were unique in all of creation, and so they were holy. And they were not only innocent, they were righteous. They were doing what God wanted them to do. And so their relationship with one another was right. Their relationship with God was right. And so they enjoyed original holiness and righteousness. And the goal of our salvation is the restoration of that. And so a key aspect, I think, that is overlooked all too often today in discussions of the image of God is this aspect of original holiness and righteousness. So what are the implications of the doctrine? Well, first of all, we belong to God. We do not belong to ourselves. We are not our own masters. We belong to God. We ought then to pattern our lives after Jesus, who represents fully the image of God in man. Therefore, full humanity, that is, being fully human, involves being properly related to God. We cannot be proper image bearers if we are not properly related to God. The exercise of dominion is a consequence of the imago Dei, and therefore work and learning are noble and honorable pursuits. Life is sacred. If we are created in the image of God, that growing fetus in the womb of its mother is sacred. If we are created in the image of God, that elderly patient with dementia is still created in the image of God, and that life is sacred. All of life is sacred. The image of God is universal. Each person is worthy of respect and dignity because of the image of God in them, regardless of race, age, sex, social status, income, whatever. Every individual is worthy of dignity and respect.